A bridge could mean many things. For example, a dialogue between two opinions, like us two right now,
Yeah.
between history and the present day, between the young and the old. Focusing on fashion, designers can build bridges and connect with customers through designs, creations, and any other thing comes out from a house. What is an example of a bridge for you, Humberto?
I mean, for me, a bridge is a strong story. I think it's something that connects something that you create with something that's tangible in a story that's either in your head or a story that you're trying to tell. I feel like the story really brings a person into a brand or into a company, or it introduces. I feel like a bridge is it's a very strong and important role in getting someone closer to you.
Mm-hmm. And in your opinion, now that we're in Florence,
Yeah.
how can a historical place like Florence become again a place for innovative forms of art and expression as it used to be in the Renaissance years?
I came here and I feel so inspired in Florence. I feel like, you look at the history, and I think that obviously there's a really important history that's here, but I think you also look at the people, and I find that the Florentine people, there's something really exciting about even just the way they look on the street, and the way, I went to the markets and seeing the way people were. I feel like there's definitely something that's very inspiring. It really inspired my fall-winter men's show when I came here. And I really wanted to involve the people.
How can we, let's say, use this heritage to create something modern?
Well, I feel like in order to really speak about the future, you have to always remember the past. I feel like the past informs the future, in the sense that I think it is important to remember all the different, the key ingredients in order to build towards something new. And that's what I feel like the city has to offer.
What leads to recognition and news in art, fashion, or architecture today? Let's say in the Renaissance years, architecture and art, creating sculptures, paintings, was something very, very solid. Thus today, fashion is one of a new form that has been added. Does fashion, in your opinion, serve what architecture did back then?
In my opinion, I really feel like when you work on fashion and you're on the schedule of building and doing these shows every 6 months, I feel like what you're really doing is inviting people into a process, a much bigger structure that you're building, and that you are really, you're almost putting brick by brick, and you're creating what will be the bigger thing that you're trying to talk about. And to me, that's what fashion is about. You're inviting people into the process. So I do see the parallels in fashion and almost the building of a building.
Humberto, in ancient history, monsters were created due to lack of explanation. What about today?
I mean, today I feel like people create their own monsters. I think that, and I don't think that a monster is a negative thing. I think that there's something really positive about a monster. I feel like it brings out another element, another dimension in a person and in work. And I feel like it's something that's unreachable that you try to look for.
Can monsters, let's say, become a manifesto for matters such as racism, sexuality, education, handicaps, sociological issues, and at the same time represent something artistically creative and innovative? Let me give you an example. Let's say in the 90s we had Catherine Hamnet. Castelbajac with all these huge messages printed on the T-shirts, even Westwood. Today, we don't see this anymore. Designers don't create a manifesto by a print.
Yeah.
How can we, let's say, make a statement today? What's the new way of making a statement?
I mean, I think that there's two ways. I think there's individual statements, and I think you see it on a day-to-day basis. People express themselves individually, and that's the beauty of seeing people on the streets in every city really kind of taking their body as a message to themselves. And then I think you see group representations of this, where there are demonstrations where people use their bodies in numbers to really tell a message. I mean, I think you look at things like the Pussy Riots, and you look at things like, you know, even all the kind of sit-ins in Wall Street. And I think these are all demonstrations of a larger group. And to me, those are all relevant. I think they're all differently expressed nowadays, but I think it's still an expression that's very strong.
In your opinion, was there a period in fashion that led to monstrous results?
I mean, I don't know what the definition of monstrous.
In your own perception?
I mean, to me, I think that there's been beautiful, monstrous results. You know, I think that those are some of the kind of fashion moments that I think as a kid and being introduced to fashion.
Can you give us some examples?
Yeah, I would say that, you know, growing up and kind of witnessing, you know, early Hussein Chalayan or early McQueen, you know, even Bernard Wilhelm and all these kind of interesting comb. I feel like there are definitely moments of beautiful monsters.
Why, in your opinion, humans have such strong bonds with their clothes?
I mean, I feel like, going back to the earlier question, that humans, you know, clothing is your armor, it's your weapon, it's your message. It can be everything. You don't have to say much, and your clothing allows you to say it all. And sometimes it's misinterpreted, and sometimes it is too correct. And I think that I think makes life interesting, and I think that's why people like to play around with it. You use it as a weapon. You know, I feel like clothing is your armor.
To make it more specific, what binds us with a certain look, a certain designer? Because there are designers that have solid followers.
Yeah.
And when you see them, it's like, you know, a designer soldier coming, you know, when they go to see the show and you see them coming, it's like, oh my God, it's the gang, it's the Rick Owens gang, it's the Kenzo gang, it's the... What binds us with a certain look?
I mean, I think certain looks form communities. And I think, you know, there are a lot of different fashion communities. And I think, you know, even as we work on Kenzo, we want to build this community where people really feel invited and they feel a part of something. And I think that that's what clothing allows you to do. It allows you to be a part of a community.
And what about opposite materials like leather and lace and etc.? Why are they so strongly linked to sex?
I mean, I think that these are, you know, these are stereotypes that a lot of people have in their minds. And, you know, when I think of leather and lace, I don't think of sex. I think of, you know, really kind of beautiful garments. And I think of people wearing kind of incredible outfits together. I think it's just in terms of interpretation, and it's in terms of people being to broaden their scope and broaden their perspective. I don't really believe in pigeonholing people into certain things. So I think that, you know, when you say those words to me, I think of a very different image.
Focusing on fetish, it has always been linked to sexually provocative clothes, while today fetish behavior has evolved into something else.
Yeah.
We're now aroused by the sight of a logo, for example.
Yeah.
Your quotation on this phenomenon?
I think that everyone has their own personal loves and wants and labeling system. And that in itself is a fetish. And I think that there are ways of creating individuality at the same time creating these groups. And I feel like a lot of times that's what some of these fetishes allow you to do.
How does that a brand can put intense passion in its consumers?
I mean, at the end of the day, I think it's about authenticity, and it's about telling something that's honest and real. And to me, that's the most important thing in delivering the message of a brand, is to be really honest with yourself and to be honest with what you're presenting.
Is creation a new language, a utility? Is it a language one needs to learn?
I mean, I think creation is an unbelievable gift of freedom. And I think that there are many different ways of creating and many different ways of interacting with creation. So it allows for expression. And I think there's something, that's the most beautiful thing about it.
And last question, does fashion have a political role?
Fashion definitely has a political role. I think that you've witnessed through history how fashion plays into political messages, and I think now with where the world is today, I feel like it plays an even bigger role. So it's an exciting time for fashion.